All right, after 4 games, the Jets are 2-2. Believe it or not, we're going to cover everything that happened yesterday, and boy, there is a lot to cover as the Jets beat the Jags in overtime. Big performance from Bilal Powell and rookie Elijah McGuire. And can the Jets go to 3-2? That's possible. We'll cover that and much more as Jets Confidential Radio on the Prime Sports Radio Network is next. All right, it is Monday, October 2nd, 2017. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, as the New York Jets are surprising a lot of people by, and it doesn't matter who they're beating. Fact is, nobody expected them to be 2-2 at this season, or at least very few people did. Now, in the beginning of the season, we did preview, they looked at the schedule and did not think it was a crazy notion that based on the schedule, if everything worked out well, that the Jets could be at this point. That's what we do here. We try to keep it real, unlike the national media who thinks and has thought all summer long that the Jets are just a complete bunch of fools and tankers. But that's not what we talked about in this program, and the possibility existed, and it's here. Now we'll find out whether or not the Jets can take advantage of it. So welcome in my co-host for the show, and he is a sports writer over at rotowire.com, Jan Levine. And Jan, I mean, look, the first few weeks of the season, we really didn't. I mean, I keep these notes during the game, so I can always refer back to them, depending on exactly what happens. Usually, like big plays and stuff, key points in the games. And the first 3 games, I didn't really have to do that. I mean, the Bills game was kind of the Oakland game was a blowout, and even the Miami game was a blowout. So there wasn't anything like turning point stuff, except 1 or 2 things. I had so many turning points and notes in this game that I was writing in all different places on my both sides of paper. I couldn't keep count. I mean, if we actually had the time, we could probably do 2 hours on the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us expected us, at least I didn't expect them to be 2-2. And I think we spoke when the year started that we thought they could win week 1. And after the debacle, that was week 1. And then especially after week 2, things didn't look good. But no. We talked about last week that Jeff gave Todd Bowles a lot of credit for keeping the team together, for not letting them lose faith, for kind of taking over the defense, which he's been running, and making sure that the defense was primed and ready, which clearly they've been the last 2 weeks. Saw some interesting things out of John Morton, as you mentioned. Elijah McGuire with the huge run, and you and I talked about him in the preseason and after the draft that we both liked him a lot, and I really loved the upside. And with Matt Forte out, they need another back to step up, and Boyd and McGuire step up yesterday. You had Bilal Powell fall down and somehow get back up and score in a 75-yard run. And you and I have both been talking for weeks that we really wanted to see Bilal Powell be the bellwether back.
Yep.
Making the bell cow back, giving the ball a ton, which is what they did yesterday, both running and receiving out of the backfield. And as you said, lots and lots of turning points. Defense with a really strong performance. Special teams with a fairly good, not great, but good enough performance. Defensively, they came up big, especially a couple of times when the field position got flipped, and they were able to. And then, Josh McCown, I mean, the second interception, I can't fault him on. I mean, Powell slipped down in the backfield.
Sure.
So it's kind of hard to really fault him on. But the backward lateral throw to Powell's got to be thrown in front of him. And that was a huge turning point. And they looked to be cruising, and the game was clearly in hand. And all of a sudden you look up and like, wait a minute, how do we get tied here? Yeah. Wasn't this like a salted away win? And, give them credit for holding them off in the overtime and making sure that they didn't give Jacksonville good enough field position. And Blake Bortles wasn't particularly good, but the defense kind of made life heck on him by the amount of rushes that they had, just the pass rush they had. And just, they did enough to win, as you mentioned. Cleveland upcoming. Ironically enough, I think they're going to go into that game as a favorite, which
they have to be.
Probably they should.
Cleveland's terrible.
But I don't know if any of us would have thought they'd be a favorite 5 games into a season. And who would have thought that they'd be tied for the lead in the East right now?
Well, again, it's not necessarily that. Sure, a lot changed after what we discussed preseason as opposed to the first 2 weeks. And I think, look, the reason that I was very upset after the second game of the season was because of the fact that I believe that this team could be where we are right now. And that's why I got upset. And I know a lot of Jet fans or people covering the team might have even been wondering, why is he getting upset? What does he expect? Well, this is what I expect. I expected the team to be a lot more competitive. Again, not saying that his team is a playoff team or anything crazy like that. I still think that if there's any hope of them to be better than people think, eventually, it would have to be something from the quarterback position, because this team, as remember we talked about, went through the positions and said, okay, how far away is this team? And this is why I really felt that one. Definitely no more than two good off seasons, especially this off season with the picks and the salary cap space. You get another good off season. You make some nice moves with the personnel, and then you find your quarterback. Either he's on the roster or you get him in the draft next year. And I think this team can make strides a lot faster than people are giving the organization credit for. And that's the same thing what I'm saying this season. I think that unless they can find something at that quarterback position at whatever time, I hope it's before the season's over and, we tried with McCown after 9-10 weeks and, now it's over. We've lost 6 straight. Let's go to Petty. No, I don't want to wait that long, but that might be what happens, unfortunately. I would hope that, because look, we're seeing it with Deshaun Watson. We're seeing it with Bilal Powell. This happens all the time. Just imagine if Tom Savage had won game 1 and had not thrown a turnover. 1 touchdown, 13 of 16, Houston wins. Let's just say he continues to play like that. Right now, we don't see Deshaun Watson. He is still on the sidelines. What happens if Matt Forte is still is still healthy? We probably don't see Elijah McGuire much yesterday. We probably don't see Powell getting the amount of touches he gets. This is why this particular team that we're talking about today needs to kind of wake up regarding that. And at some point, and you mentioned this, the Eli Manning thing when he was young, even if things are going well, at some point, wake up, understand what's going on here, and see. You don't know if Petty is any better. We don't know. And maybe he is, and if he is and he's a big time spark at quarterback, maybe we actually can be better than we think.
I mean, we talked a lot about that. This year is a growth year. This year, the record doesn't matter. Although, I'm one of those who was a proponent of them hopefully not having a good record, because I wanted to get that high draft pick and hopefully get that quarterback of the future. I mean, you talked about Deshaun Watson, as you said. Tom Savage, he wins week 1. You probably don't see Watson. All Watson's done is rejuvenated that entire offense. You saw how dominant he was yesterday, and a lot of people, his coach had said, Dabo Swinney said, that he was the Michael Jordan on a football field, and sure as heck he is. He has clearly been that since he's taken over as the number 1 quarterback there. But this is a year where you want to see the young kids grow. You want to see the Jamal Adams get that growth. You want to see Marcus May get the growth. Heck, you even saw, I wouldn't call him a young guy, but Coney Ely was dominant yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Returning after the tragic passing of his sister, which is why he was out of camp a couple of days, and it was questionable, I guess, whether he even would play. But he wanted to play, and he clearly, was absolutely dominant, blocking balls down like unbelievably yesterday. He was tremendous on the defensive line, and probably the most dominant defensive guy they had yesterday on the roster. But McGuire is a young kid. You got to see what he's got. So you got McGuire, you got Adams, you got May. 3 rookies, all of them in the lineup yesterday, all of them being difference makers this year in terms of their ability to pick up a win yesterday. So, as you said, though, and as I said before, even if they're playing well, recognize what this season is for and recognize what you're utilizing this season for the future. And the growth is what you get out of the players that build towards that future, and seeing if Petty can be your number 2 of the future, or Hackenberg is even your number 2 of the future, and maybe by some miracle they become your number 1 depending on what transpires. But you have to take a look at all these kids and kind of see what you get out of them, because while McCown has played relatively well, he is clearly not the future of this franchise.
Yeah, look, and it's not even like, look, he's making a couple of throws every game. He's not a turnover machine, and he's a very good leader. But, he is. It's not like the Jets are 2-2 because of Josh McCown. Let's just be real. If Bryce Petty was playing, as long as he wasn't a turnover machine, we'd be doing the same thing. The only thing that McCown's doing is not giving the game away. So, but we don't know. We don't know if Petty would give the game away, and I understand that. And even at this point in time, I'm willing to say, okay, all right, you know what? You needed to get the team off to a decent start, and Petty was injured, and I understand all of this. But at some point, I just hope it happens early enough, as we've said before, that he can hopefully make a difference if he's a difference maker. But as far as the game and as far as these running backs, this is why, when Matt Forte is ready, look, we talked about the whole thing last week about should the Jets, even when Forte comes back, shouldn't they eat that $3 or $4 million? Unless Forte was happy to get 1 or 2 carries a game, sit the bench, and be a good soldier. Because if he's not, then you trade him or cut him and eat the money. And this is why you eat the money, because you cannot afford Bilal Powell or McGuire to be sitting the bench in a rebuilding year. It makes absolutely no sense to do that. And, I don't know if they can do it. I don't see any reason why the other team that gets Forte is not going to have to worry about anything. They're not the ones eating $4 million. I can't imagine why, when Forte is ready before the trade deadline, why a team wouldn't want Forte. Just say, okay, look, we'll just give us a 7th-round draft pick. Come on, some team that might have some depth issues at running back that's trying to compete for a Super Bowl championship. Look at Green Bay. Wouldn't Green Bay want Matt Forte for a 7th-round draft pick?
Well, somebody owns Ty Montgomery. I'm hoping they don't do that. But yes, I agree with you in terms of their running attack and what happened with Montgomery last week, although they are pretty happy with the rookie who kind of played this week. And
Aaron
took
Jones.
over
Sure.
Took over for him. So, I mean, after they lost Jamal Williams also. But yeah, if you're in terms of depth, and if Montgomery ends up missing time with his rib injury and Williams misses time with his injury, and they're down to that 3rd string back, and they need somebody who can spell whoever's filling in as the number 1 back, or just provide some depth. Yeah, of course, but kind of it all depends clearly, as you said, as to whether or not Forte comes back from his toe injury and is ready to go. And if the Jets have to eat some money to hopefully get another asset out of it, be it a decent draft pick and a 7th, I'd prefer to get a little higher, but we also know how trades go down in the NFL, that it's rare to get fair value for a player.
Yeah.
But as long as you can get something and turn it into an asset, why not, especially if he's not part of the future of this organization.
All right, now speaking of these running backs, Jamal Murphy, who's been, as we said at the beginning of the season, he'll be on this show from time to time. His main job as a contributor is when he's at the games to try to get sound, in between the games, try to go down, get interviews, things of that nature. And he was, of course, at the game, and he was able to pick up some sound from Bilal Powell. So let's go ahead and we'll play about a minute of some of what Bilal Powell had to say about the game, and start off with his run.
When you go through that 75-yard touchdown and just what you saw and kept running, just take us through that play from start to finish.
I mean, it was a good drawn up play, and I just saw the guy going for my legs and just jumped, and I didn't feel anyone touch me, and I didn't hear a whistle, and that's something that we practice throughout training camp, effort finishing, and that's something that was showed today.
Was there ever any doubt in your mind that you were touched when they were reviewing the play?
No, I was trying to get to the opposite. But like I said, man, it was a good team effort.
It's a positive momentum being 2-2. Look going to next week.
Yeah, it's always good to finish a quarter like this and get back to 500 and just focus on the little things right now, make some corrections, and head on next week.
You talked pretty highly about Eli McGuire earlier this week, and he didn't exactly have 75, but he had a 69 yard. Can you take through his performance?
I mean, like I said, every time I'm asked about him, man, he approaches the game like a true professional. You can't really even tell that he's a rookie, man, just by the way he approaches it. And he's just so explosive, man, so smart and so coachable. And you saw that the other day.
I tell you, that's the thing that really is encouraging about what they have with McGuire and Powell, because we said with Powell too, he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on him, Jan. So he's in the prime of his career, and McGuire is a rookie. It's good to have. Now we have no idea about Leggett, but Jenkins is also not even in his prime. I mean, if you want to say he's in his prime, sure. I mean, okay, he's in his prime, but if he winds up developing now and getting on with the personal demons that are behind him, and we know we want to see more of Hansen and Stewart, and hopefully that'll eventually happen. Hopefully they get an Unwa back. But as you can tell, they're developing, and that's nice. The skill position players, which we were excited about this year. And by the way, we also should say kudos to the offensive line. Maybe they just needed to get a little bit cohesion together. Now Winters was back in the lineup. It's still not anywhere near the level where the team needs it to be. There's no question about that. But there were some huge holes that they were able to open up for those running backs, and that's a good sign as well.
The offensive line was really, really good yesterday, especially on the run blocking side. But I have to give a lot of credit to Powell and McGuire. I mean, if you watch McGuire's TD, it was a great cutback up the middle, but the holes that the offensive line was bringing him, and just look at the number of yards that they ran for, was evident just how dominant that line was yesterday. And they pushed the Jacksonville team that beat the tar out of a okay Baltimore team all over the field. I mean, they just gashed them in terms of holes. I mean, that's when I said, when it was 20-10, you just looked at it and said, put this one in the win column, and you look up a couple of minutes later and you're like, wait a minute, how did this happen? So the old Jets, or even this year's Jets, might have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, as we've referred to many times before, but not this year. And give them a lot of credit for showing a good amount of resiliency, because it would have been very easy for them to just basically throw in the towel and give up. But they were able to hold it together just enough. The defense made enough plays. The offense made enough plays. They they flipped the field a couple times. They forced Jacksonville to a punt. Kozlowski had a really stupid penalty, but Donahue got away with one where he kind of basically blindsided him with a block, and Kozlowski had a taunting call that was a huge 15 yards before the game-winning field goal on Catanzaro. But give the defense credit for forcing them into a couple 3-and-outs and turning the field over.
Oh yeah, no, I mean if you look at that situation, because look, again, it was a bad pass by McCown, no question, but that's also a very fluky play. That never happens. I mean, we've never seen that. I've never seen it. I've watched the Jets football for my whole life. I've never seen that particular play happen to them in that circumstance as well. So okay, it's a fluky bad play. It is what it is. But then then the other fluke. Then Powell slips, interception, and you're going, you got to be kidding me. And then the Jets defense held them though, and Ely made that big. He had 4 blocks, by the way, and one was big on that third down. So they settled for the field goal, go to overtime. And then in overtime, it looked like Jacksonville had that edge with only 10 minutes now. A lot of it could, if you don't have this great offense, and you had the feeling it was going to be a field position battle. That's what was beginning to occur here. The Jets were finding themselves pinned in their own territory. And after Edwards' first punt, which wasn't very good, what did the Jets defense do? They held. And then the Jets get the ball back. They had a big play. It looked like if the guy didn't shoestring tackle Kearse, he could have had a touchdown and the game would have been over. Instead, anyway, it was a penalty on Jenkins, and the Jets went back to where they were, and then they had a punt. Then this time, Edwards comes up with a 73-yard net punt, thanks to a 10-yard penalty. And by the way, Marquise Lee is probably the GOAT of the game for the Jags. He had that pass that he dropped in overtime, which would have set him up at the 30, and then they punted, and then he muffs the punt and moves them back. But still, Edwards and the defense, for both of them to be able to come back under adversity and say, you know what, forget it, next play, and then the Jets to be able to hold again, and then get themselves in field position. So when Pelosi makes the bad play on their behalf, all they had to do was take a couple of plays to set the field goal up. And it's not a chippy either. He had missed the one previous, which you could blame, by the way. I don't know. You blame the coaching staff after the fake punt, which we'll get to in a little while. But he missed that one, which was a pretty same. It was within a few yards of the first one. And it's an overtimer. So as we talked about with Folk, hey, even though Folk misses some from time to time, he always made the clutch kicks, and Catanzaro was 1 for 1 on clutch kicks.
Great. I mean, we've said before a couple times that Catanzaro has surprised me. I mean, I was a big proponent of Martin making the team out of training camp, and didn't think Catanzaro had a strong camp. But for the most part, other than one miss, he's been very, very good early in the season, hitting some big kicks, and did it again yesterday to give them the game. In terms of when they had to. Defense came up with big plays when they needed to. Offense had just enough offense after seemingly dominated. I mean, you had the fake punt that ended up not going for anything. They ended up blowing it in terms of missing an opportunity to score there. But you take a look at the overall, and a first game where they were completely out of sync, a second game where they were just completely outclassed, and then rebounding the last 2 games to get wins in contests where we thought they had a potential to win. Last week, they basically completely dominated the game. This week, dominated large components of the game based upon their ability to run the ball. You'd like to see a little bit more of a consistent passing attack, but that hopefully will come with a bit more experience and utilization of the guys like Stewart and Hanson, who, as we talked about, the need for this year to be a growth year. not utilizing them is probably not the wisest course of action, because you do need to kind of see what you have from those guys as well.
Yeah, and look, if they also had a more mobile quarterback, a better quarterback, there might be something there, because Morton seems to have been done. He seems to be doing a good job as a coach. No complaints with how they're running the offense. Matter of fact, McCown seemed like he took a couple of sacks, just holding on to the ball too long. And look, he's an old guy. What are you going to do? He's almost 40 years old. So they have limitations at quarterback, and yet they're still finding ways to win. And another thing I like about what's going on here, and this is why I was all for the ditching of all the veterans, didn't call it tanking on this show. They were doing the right move. You're building, you're getting also rid of a lot of the issues and the malcontents in the locker room, the Brandon Marshalls and the Sheldon Richardsons, and you're trying to bring everybody together, because all that matters when you're trying to build something. And that is also something we saw in this game, is that they have a new identity. They have new leaders in that clubhouse. They new young, energetic, excitable guys that are the next wave of this franchise, and hopefully the franchise success for many years to come. And if you take a look around the league, you can see situations where teams just look at the Dolphins. I mean, I don't know what's going on there. I think it may have something to do with the hurricane, but I have no idea. Just look at, even though Pittsburgh's 3-1, does that locker room look like it's any good right now? I don't think so. So there are other situations. I mean, look at the Giants, where you take a look at teams that are more talented than the Jets, and you go, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Raiders even. I mean, there's locker rooms that you're just wondering about, but I'm not wondering at all about this locker room. This locker room, it seems like it's really, I mean, the transformation has been huge, and it is so underrated in this sport from year to year with parity in the NFL, which is, again, the reason why we didn't think the talent was necessarily as bad as the talent has been on 0-16 teams and 1-15 teams before, to think that this was going to be the worst season ever, the way that the media was building it. So now it's just a matter of hoping that you get and maximize guys like Coney Ealing, and also let's throw in guys like David Bass. I mean, look, this is why you have to give McCagnon credit for bringing in guys like this, because they're contributing.
Absolutely. And like we said a couple of times, this is the year to evaluate what you have and what to see you need moving forward. And to me, the record is less important than the team coming together as a unit, and something that they lacked last year, despite seemingly having much better talent. I still don't think they're a tremendously talented ball club. I think there's, you said, lots of teams that are more talented, but you also lots of teams that aren't playing together and seem to have difficulty in terms of getting on the same page. The one thing you can say so far with this team is that what we have seen is more of a continuity and coalescence as a unit. And that gets to changing over the locker room, bringing in different leaders, changing strategy. Now, again, all this is great after 4 games. We have no idea what's going to happen the next 12 games. And it's great for right now, but even if they go on a losing streak, I want to see kind of whether or not they stick together. Because to me, that may end up driving more what happens with Bowles and McCagnon than the end record, because most people didn't expect them to do much coming into the season.
You know what? Also, as far as the passing game, even though, like, say, against the Raiders, where we gave up touchdowns, which is the only game really that we've been picked apart as far as the secondary, where we just looked ugly. Let's keep in mind that we haven't, after 4 games, seen anything like we saw last year, like almost every week, which was the blown assignments in the secondary. I mean, we were looking at that. Like, even the Raider game, it was just one-on-one matchups within a 10 or 15-yard space. In games last year, we were getting toasted 40 yards here, 60 yards there, 30 yards there. It was like, what is going on back there? And then also the fact that, remember a couple weeks ago, one of the reasons that we were frustrated is we were going, what's going on here? Todd Bowles, wasn't it his he was able to always key up blitzes, and he was a creative defensive guy. Where is that? Well, the last few weeks, we've seen them a lot more creative. They're blitzing more. Matter of fact, I think Buster Screen's best job on this team is blitzing. So, I mean, that's where they're getting pressure from. They're not necessarily getting pressure like I think they used to try to get before on, well, we have to get it on Williams and Wilkerson and Richardson. That's where our pressure comes from. with Richardson gone, now they're kind of being more like a 3-4. Now guys like Williams and Wilkerson are not necessarily only used or imagined to be used for pressuring the quarterback, but they're being also used to tie up guys. Hey, we got to double this guy, double that guy. We got to worry about this guy. And while they're worrying about Wilkerson and Williams and this and that, we're bringing in blitzes and we're doing that creatively. And guys like Bass and Ely and other guys are actually contributing, and that's what's forcing the pressure. And that's something that we haven't seen here in a while.
Yeah, if your defensive lineman can engage the offensive lineman and create some mismatches enough where there are gaps, then you can go ahead and then you can get the pressure from the other guys and therefore create opportunities throughout the lineup. And that's kind of what happened. So I don't think Wilkerson or Williams didn't have particularly great games in terms of rushing the passer, but what they're able to do is engage the offensive lineman, create some mismatches, force some double teaming, and therefore the blitz pressure was able to find gaps to come through because the defensive linemen created those gaps through their engagement with the offensive linemen.
And I will say this, I must say this, just so you know, just going to reference this. On the worst defensive team in the NFL, and definitely got to be the worst that we've ever seen Bill Belichick have, David Harris inactive. Not because he's injured, can't make the field. Just saying. Just saying. Okay?
Okay.
So.
Point noted.
All right. Anyway. Hey, we're 2-2. So Cleveland next week. The thing we got to look forward to, though, is not to get big heads as a team, because you will ruin all the positive momentum if you lose to Cleveland, who, by the way, I think that it might be a good week for them to also at some point they're going to destroy this kid's confidence, Kaiser. They got to make a change. I really do. Now I don't know exactly how much better their team's going to look, but Kessler I don't think was a terrible rookie. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kessler in the next couple of weeks. I hope it's not next week. I hope they throw Kaiser out there again. I'd rather see Kaiser than Kessler because we're looking for a win. But hopefully they don't think of themselves as, oh my God, look how great we are as a young team, and they let them get carried away because they are going on the road. They're facing a team that's pretty bad. They look at the film and they go, oh my God, we can beat this team easy. And then all of a sudden you find yourself with a turnover here or a special teams blunder there, and you find yourself in a 4-quarter game, and then all of a sudden you got pressure on you because you don't want to lose to a winless team.
I agree. It's one of those things. Like I said, they're going to go in as a favorite, and it's not something that they're used to this year. And how well they handle that mantle of being a favorite should be very, very interesting.
All right, Jan. So next week, let us certainly hope we're talking about a Cleveland win, not because we're thinking about anything down the road, but just again, we don't want to be thinking about a Cleveland loss. So, Jan, I appreciate it. And enjoy your week. Look forward to talking some hockey with you hopefully this week with the hockey season getting underway on Wednesday. And again, we'll talk some Jet football on Monday.
Sounds good. There's a chill in the air, at least in New York City over the past weekend. So it shows that fall's here and that's football season, and it indicates and signifies the start of the hockey season. So all good. And I guess we both would be remiss if we don't wish condolences for all the tragedies that happened in Las Vegas this morning, and condolences to all of those who were affected by the horrific tragedy that happened.
All right. Likewise, Jan. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.
All right. That's Jan Levine. And again, you can check him out at AirJan. What is it? AirJan 23? Is that what it is? Let me see. Where's Jan? AirJan23. There you go. That's his Twitter handle. AirJan23. AirJan23. And you can get Jamal Murphy at Blockatologist. And again, thanks to Jamal for getting the sound. He had a few other interviews, sound bites from other McGuire and such. But trust me, the sound on that was a little low because that's what's going to happen in a locker room. It's not easy. I've been there, done that for years, many years ago with the Jets. Matter of fact, probably I would say my the interview that I really think about all the time was when I went to Tampa. Now I was down in Florida. Jets had that Tampa game. I don't know if you remember the Tampa game when I think that was the one where Cribette ended up with the game winner, I believe. And that might have been right around the time when Cribette and Keyshawn were going through some of that, Keyshawn talking about Cribette and stuff. But that game was and the rain, it was a really bad day and raining, and it was one of those typical South Florida rainy afternoons. And anyway, game was over. Jets won. I went in the locker room and did what you're supposed to do. Look around, just like Jamal does. You put your mic in there and try to get some sound. But then you also try to see if you could find someone where you can do a one-on-one. And I had done the Jets. That's what you do. I'm the Jet guy. I go in, do the post-game press conference, done, try to go get the players. So now I'm like thinking, okay, well, let me go to the Tampa Bay locker room. So I walked over, Tampa Bay locker room. I'm walking around, don't really see anything. And all of a sudden, in comes Tony Dungy. And Tony Dungy's like passing me. And I mean, you got to understand, I'm probably like, I don't even know, probably just a couple years into the business. And I go, Coach, can I ask you a few questions? And to my surprise, he said yes. And I didn't really expect him to, but he said, yeah, sure. So I went ahead, asked him a few questions. Matter of fact, a few other people, because I had stopped Dungy, came, a couple of the reporters stuck their mics in, and he was gracious. I must have asked him about 4 or 5 things. And look, those things, that's why they always say, and it's so true, when you meet people like that, whether it's just as a fan at a game or a concert, entertainment, whatever, it is a lasting impression if they do not respect you, or they do respect you. Because I'm going to say something too. At the same game, I will always remember somebody that disrespected me. Okay, and that's Sal Paolantonio. Okay, he disrespected me because you all hang out in the media section. And by the way, I got my credentials through Dan Leberfeld, Jets Confidential. So I'm hanging out. I don't know if I was with Dan at the time this happened, but I'm hanging out in the media area before the game, and this is when everybody's just kind of waiting for the game to start and such. So I went up to Sal and I said, "Hey, Sal, I was wondering if I can get an interview with you." And this is Sal Paolantonio, mind you. Okay, I'm not asking Howard Cosell. And his first question, he didn't say yes or no. Based on time. Like if he would have just said, "No, I don't really have any time. Sorry about that," I would have been fine. I've heard no a million times. I would have been fine, even though probably 100 times 20 years ago. But I still would have been fine. So, but what did he say? The worst thing you could say, "Where are you from?" was what came out of his mouth. Where are you from? Sal Paolantonio said, "Where are you from?" And since I wasn't ESPN or any of those other big shot networks, can't do it. In the same game, Tony Dungy said, "Sure." Okay? Those are impressions that last. And it's not, again, it's not like, "Oh, I got to run," or anything like that. It's just, "Oh, who are you with?" And if I'm with somebody established, okay, sure. That's weak. That is very, very weak. So anyway. Okay. Also should give props to Jamal Adams, who once again had another really good game. Didn't have the plays that he had against Miami, but it's clear that with that secondary that I talked about with Jan just a few minutes ago, they're not blowing assignments back there. So Adams and May and look, it's everybody. Okay, even though I still have to believe that if Roberts or Marcus Williams was playing instead of Buster Screen, I mean, seriously, you're telling me it would be worse? I mean, really? Like, really? Like, and here's the thing too, is just like the Petty thing. Whenever I talk about this stuff about bringing in a backup quarterback, if I don't think the starter's doing well, or any other player, okay, including wanting to see more of Powell of a Forte, and that's worked. Whenever we talk about that stuff, it's not because it's like, "Oh, guaranteed if he starts this guy over that guy, you watch. I mean, I hardly ever say that. It's just a matter of, let's see. And I don't care if you give him a half. I mean, can we see? Can we find out? Why can't we find out? So why can't we find out if you move Roberts to screen's position or Marcus Williams over and then Marcus Williams over to Roberts' position, why can't we do that? I mean, seriously, if Buster Screen gets hurt, who's taking his spot, right? That's the first answer. Who's taking his spot? Whoever that player is that takes Buster Screen's spot, why can't somebody else get a shot for a half? Are you afraid that Buster Screen is going to cry on the sidelines? Do you have sympathy for Buster Screen? Is that more important to Todd Bowles? Is he feels bad for people like Matt Forte and Buster Screen and Josh McCown? Because before that, it was Ryan Fitzpatrick. Is that what we're doing here? We're feeling sorry for guys because I don't know what else it is. I mean, so why can't you find out if another guy is better? Because we clearly had that opportunity with Forte out, and look what happened to the running game. Yeah, how many rushing yards did we have without Matt Forte? 256 yards. Okay. Now, how do we know that if Screen didn't play and someone else played for him, that every game there wouldn't be either a penalty or a key first down or a big missed tackle? Again, the only thing that Buster Screen has done that I've noticed him do is sack quarterbacks. That's it, pressure quarterbacks from the blitz. But what I'm trying to say, though, is that, okay, maybe there's other things. And trust me, it's not like that, oh, yeah, I'm not watching all the other great stuff he's doing. There's none of that nonsense, okay? So nobody's going to convince me of that stuff. But anyway, the point is that this is still the one thing that bothers me and why in the long run that I'm not seeing it. I'm still like we talked about in game 3 with the red flag in the beginning of the game. And then I don't know what went on with this fake punt. Like, first of all, I don't even know why they called a fake punt in that spot when it's 4th and 21. What is it? 4th and 21 at your own 47 with 22 seconds left. I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to accomplish there. Because we're pretty lucky to get the first down. But what happens is, okay, great, made a nice play. But why, if you're going to call a fake punt, then, and shouldn't you be ready with the play on the next, like if we make it? I mean, isn't that the idea of making a fake punt? Is that you're going to get the first down? So shouldn't you already have some sort of communication? Like shouldn't the special teams guy contact the offensive coordinator and say, by the way, and I don't even have to whisper, they're on the headset, hey, or you can put your hand over it. We're going to fake the punt. So we need a play in case we make the 4th and 21 at our own 47. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to pass the ball. That's right. We're going to pass the ball to Marcus Williams. And he's going to run the wrong way. He's going to run into his defender. I mean, his own player. But by running into his own player, he bounces off of that player and actually ends up in a better situation. Because if he had not bounced into his own player, he would have been tackled. But he bounced into his own player, and then he gets a first down. So what we have to do is within all that time, you have to make sure you have a play ready. Maybe I shouldn't even be telling you this, because if I tell you this, you'll probably talk me out of it because it's a really silly thing to do. 4th and 21, fake punt on around 47. Yeah, I think I'm talking myself out of it. Anyway, so you get the point. Why? Now, what we see is Todd Bowles yelling on the sidelines. I don't know who he's yelling at. I mean, he's the head coach. So what are you yelling at? All right? I don't know. But he's yelling at somebody. So whose fault is it that you didn't get a playoff? I don't know. Maybe he's yelling at the coordinator. Dude, talk to the offensive. Talk to Morton. Tell him you got a play going here, and he's got to be ready. I don't know who he's yelling at, but fact is, these are the things that's happening every game. And if it was a little thing here and there, I'd be okay with it. Every coach does stupid things. I mean, or I shouldn't say stupid things, but every coach makes decisions where you second guess them. But Bowles does these that are just, or we see it from the perspective of Bowles, that it's just so ridiculous that you're going, really? Because the ultimate goal for your team, and when you see a coach on your sidelines, I mean, the ultimate goal with me, of course, is I want to see my head coach in the locker room after the Super Bowl. Not that they're in the locker rooms anymore. They're out in the halftime. They're out on the field, and they're hoisting the Super Bowl trophy out on the field. That's my vision. All right. So if I'm a Jet fan and I'm visioning the team about to win a championship, a Super Bowl, and they're going to hold the Super Bowl trophy, well, I guess, okay, or who's that coach going to be? And all right, well, I guess right now it's Todd Bowles. So do I see Todd Bowles like grabbing a Super Bowl trophy and going, yeah, we won the Super Bowl, Todd Bowles? I mean, when I see these plays each week or these things that go, I go, I think you got to be pretty smart. Bill Belichick has taught us all that you got to be pretty smart to beat him. And anybody that does beat him, they better be pretty smart too. And I just don't see it. So I don't know. I keep saying I hope there's growth there, but then every week something stupid happens. And I'm like, well, that's dumb. So I don't know. I don't know. But it is what it is, right? We're 2-2 though. Yeah. Congratulations to Kevin Mawe for being inducted into the Jet Hall of Fame. By the way, Ring of Honor. And it's probably a bad sign for Mawe that he's in that Ring of Honor because he's probably not going to the Hall of Fame. Like Joe Klecko. Because why should Joe Klecko go to the Hall of Fame? I mean, why? I mean, he was only one of the most dominant defenders of his day. But hey, he was a Jet. So Jets don't go to the Hall of Fame unless they're Joe Namath or John Maynard or Curtis Martin. But he was really more of a Parcells guy. That's why we let Curtis Martin in. That wasn't a Jet thing. That was a Parcells thing. Because Parcells is a god. All right. So we will see you again next Monday and every Monday here on Jets Confidential Radio. What was the other thing? Oh, coming up, by the way. Well, actually, yes, coming up will be the Ourlads Football Network. It is our weekend wrap-up. And we are going to go over the top college football and NFL stories, including I'll take a look at the first quarter of the season for an NFL. You know, Miami and Tampa Bay have only played 3 games. But just giving my opinion on exactly what I'm thinking about. I'm going to be talking about Deshaun Watson all week. If you've been listening to this network, especially since last year, since I picked Clemson to win the national championship because of Deshaun Watson. I don't think there's somebody outside of Clemson that's been a bigger Deshaun Watson man than me. So I'll be talking a little bit about him this week. So anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Jamal Murphy will join us to talk fantasy football. And, that'll get us through the day right here on the Prime Sports Radio Network. Don't forget to go to jetsconfidential.com to order a subscription of Jets Confidential Magazine. Follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. And that'll wrap it up. So for Jan Levine, thanks to Jamal Murphy and Greg DePalma. We'll see you next Monday on Jets Confidential Radio. Red tape to keep the truth unified.